Hi, everyone. Welcome to True Disabled Story. My name is Nico, and I use he, him pronouns. I'm a white man with parted blonde hair, large blue and brown spectacles, and a white t-shirt with an image of a dirt bike on it. Like, I'm seated in front of a blurred out green and orange background. It's my downstairs. Like about 25% of the US and a full 17% of Philadelphia, I'm disabled. Whether we look locally, nationally, or even globally, disability communities are full of dynamic, diverse, and frankly delightful people with their own stories to tell. All we have to do is listen. As many of you know, I was born disabled. I've never known differently, and I probably will always be disabled. So whenever I run into somebody else who is disabled, whether that's in my personal life, professionally, or civically in my volunteer work, I'm always eager to know kind of what their story is and to hear their perspective. Which brings me to today's guest. I'm honored to be joined by my friend Krystle, and I can't wait to hear what she has to say. So let's turn it over to her. Hi, Krystle. Thank you so much for joining me. How are you doing?
Oh, hi. Thank you so much for that great introduction and giving me a chance to learn a little bit about your story. But I'm glad to be here. And hello, viewers and listeners.
That's excellent. Krystle, thanks so much. Can you share kind of your diagnosis story with us? Was this maybe something that you were pursuing, or did it take you by surprise? Just paint that picture for us.
Well, I am a person who is visually impaired. I am legally blind, and this year makes 25 years. I have been legally blind since the age of 16 due to a medical malpractice caused by treatment of a dermatologist who was caring for my skin. I had a skin condition called eczema, and with that, there were different results due to that treatment that led to me becoming visually impaired. So, 16, I never met anyone who was visually impaired or blind before. And after just kind of starting that journey, I had many opportunities to meet a lot of dynamic people in the disability community, not just in the blindness community or the low vision community, but I met all types of people who identify with disability. And so the cause of the medical malpractice by the dermatologist led me to be diagnosed with a condition which was rare at my age at that time, and it's called pseudotumor cerebri. And today, more people are being diagnosed with it, especially women and women of color. And what pseudotumor cerebri is, it is basically a false brain tumor. And most signs of this condition is having very severe headaches frequently, whether it's all day and night. Sometimes having dizzy spells, sometimes vomiting clear fluid. Your equilibrium may be off balance, and you'll probably not be able to um, keep your mobility stable. And sometimes some people aren't affected at all. They don't have any headaches or any symptoms. And maybe they may wake up with some type of vision impairment. Maybe they may be completely blind. Maybe their vision may not be affected at all. But in my case, with the pseudotumor, what it is, because it is pseudo, I have all the symptoms of a brain tumor, but it's mimicking the brain tumor. And so that's why it's considered pseudo. And all of us, we have cerebral spinal fluid to protect the function of our brain and sustain our balance and mobility. And in normal cases, any type of degree of cerebral spinal fluid should be between a count of 12 and 16. But in my case, my cerebral spinal fluid would rise to 38, which that's a pretty dangerous zone because if left untreated, it could have resulted in a fatal outcome, either a brain aneurysm or it could have been life threatening, where I would have lost my life. And I experienced 22 spinal taps, 2 eye surgeries, and a temporary shunt to measure how much fluid I produced around my brain. And so, what happens with pseudotumor, everyone has had a headache at some point in your life or some type of pain. And pain is really just a elevated pressure that we all experience. And headaches, when we have increased cerebral spinal fluid around our brain, it creates a weight in the head. And because we have a skull and we have a brain and we have our spinal cord, what happens is the weight of the fluid around the brain will shift the brain back and forth. And because we have a skull to protect the brain would shift and press on the optic nerves. And the result of it pressing on the optic nerves, the weight of the fluid around the brain can be something called papilledema, which is the rupture of the optic nerves. And that's something that I also experienced, where it would kind of like appear as if your eyes were completely inflamed and they would look very bulgy, as if like they could just roll out like marbles. And then when it moves forward to press onto the skull and the optic nerves, because the skull is a barrier preventing it from moving forward, it will shift backward onto the beginning of the spinal cord, which would then affect your equilibrium, your balance. Just standing up straight could feel like you could fall right down. And because of the weight of the fluid causing the head pressure, you would have really severe headaches that may exceed the experience of migraines. So, that was my diagnosis, my initial experience with pseudotumor. And when I was declared legally blind, I didn't fully understand it because I still had usable vision. So I didn't understand what that meant at all. That was my first time ever hearing of that term at the age of 16. And that's the beginning of my diagnosis.
Krystle, thank you. Well, I haven't ever heard a story quite like that one. Let's put it that way. The symptoms that you list sound really debilitating. How has this diagnosis impacted your life?
Well, initially, it impacted me in ways where I was very uncertain. And I was a teenager. So most teenagers, we might be filled with vanity because we want to look nice. We want to have lots of friends. We want to do what teenagers like to do. And in my instance, I spent a year in and out of the hospital once I was diagnosed. Um, at the first kind of like experience, I just knew I was having headaches all the time. And because of the headaches, I would be very fatigued. So I would be sleeping a lot. And even in my sleep, I could hear the fluid swishing around in my ears. And at times I wouldn't be able to lift up my head or turn my neck because the pain was just too bad. No amount of Tylenol could help subdue it. And my grandmother was working at a hospital which was called Irvington General Hospital in New Jersey. And she was, because she worked there for so long, she was very acquainted with the doctors. So she said maybe we should go to the eye doctor there. And when I went there, they just told me my eyes were inflamed. I didn't even know what inflammation of the eyes was. And they said I would have to come back in 2 weeks' time to get fitted for prescription eyewear. And I got some eye drops, and I was still having these bad headaches. My vision wasn't completely affected, or at least I didn't realize it was affected. And I went back to the same place, but there was a different ophthalmologist there who did a more thorough examination of me. And by the end of the visit is when he told me that I had pseudotumor cerebri. And because I was still a minor, I had to be rushed to another hospital in the children's unit to get some immediate care. And all of those different transitions were very rapid to absorb. And I just didn't know what my life would turn out to be. I'm the oldest of seven. And I'm used to being the big sister. I'm used to everyone coming to me for everything. And at that time, a lot of my teenage life had to kind of come to a little pause because my medical care was a priority. And there was a moment within my treatment that I spent 2 weeks in intensive care because I had to be laid in different positions to have the specialist see how much fluid I would produce, whether I was laying flat, laying in a 90-degree angle on my side. And by the end of that 2 weeks, one, they had to shave the front of my hair on the right side, place a catheter on an area on my brain, and run it from that area down to a vertebrae on the left side of my back. And the catheter was connected to what is called a CC fluid bag. And within an hour, I would have filled up 5 bags worth of 500 cc's of cerebral spinal fluid. And they learned that when I laid flat on my back is when I would produce the most fluid around my brain. So it impacted me largely because I one had to think quick as a teenager and become a lot more responsible with myself and where my life was going to turn toward. Even though I have family and friends who were very supportive of me, I'm an individual and I was trying to understand what this new lifestyle was going to be. So I did not um, attend high school for about a year because I was in and out of the hospital for about a year. And I had to go through the different procedures, the eye surgeries, the spinal taps, and just, a lot of different types of medication. So it it was a big transition. And adjustment to vision loss was something that I never foresaw. But it was a slow start at first. And then later on, when I started to come into my blind identity, I learned about all of the possibilities that would be available to me and to others that I've met along the way.
Krystle, thank you so much. In this answer, I really get a sense of how, you had to drop kind of your sighted life and immediately navigate this new medical situation, being in and out of the hospital, having surgeries and procedures one right after the other. It sounds like you really had to pivot, uh, which makes me so glad to hear that you ended your answer with discovering new potential and a new community in your blind identity. Thanks for your honesty. I really appreciate that.
Sure, no problem.
Krystle, like you mentioned at the start of our conversation today, it's been a little while now since you became blind. What advice would you give someone kind of just beginning their new life with a blind identity, as you put it? Or even if you could give advice to your younger self, what advice would you have?
For someone who's starting out new with this lifestyle, understand that yes, medical professionals will diagnose you for whatever connection it is to what your vision loss or your disability may be. But they don't have the diagnosis is not going to have power over where your life is going to go. You have to have just a little bit of faith in yourself so that you can identify potential possibilities to be successful, to kind of like make lemonade out of lemons. And it's not easy transitioning from not having a disability to having a disability. And even if you were born with a disability, it's it's an ongoing challenge, but there's ways to adapt to it. There's ways to adjust. And you really have to take baby steps because some people may go in full throttle when it comes to life transitions. Like, okay, I'm not going to let this defeat me. And then there are some people who it may take a little bit longer to begin the process of acceptance. And then you just sit in a state of grief for some time. And that's okay too, because our emotions, our feelings, our thoughts are valid. And just know that those thoughts, feelings, and emotions will be temporary only if you allow it to be, so that you can see beyond what has changed in your life or what presents itself as a challenge in your life. And I'm saying this because this was my lived experience. I didn't understand everything all the way right away because it was so much happening so rapidly. But as I hone in to begin the process of understanding that one, vision loss is a spectrum. There's so many degrees and branches of vision loss. There's so many eye conditions from A to Z. And vision loss does not discriminate against gender or age groups, but if it happens to you, just know that there's a whole community, whether it's the blindness community, the disability community, or a community that you find comfort in that can help you with pursuing your lifestyle in the way that you wish to. And that's just what I can share, since this has allowed me to experience a different culture in disability. I've done many things, and they're personal, they're professional, and I've just tried every time. Every time I wanted to cross a different stepping stone in my life, it's always been at the first attempt and my decision. So when you become a person who identifies with disability, blindness, or whatever life transition, just know that you still have the opportunity to make your own decisions, no matter where you start at and when you start.
It's awesome, Krystle. I really respect your call for um, disabled independence and autonomy in our own medical care. Thank you so much for being part of that community that you talk about, the blindness community. Um, I imagine that if I were someone who was experiencing blindness for the first time, that I would want to have some kind of mentor or advisor like you. So thank you for what you do.
Oh, no problem. Thank you.
Of course. Now, Krystle, as we were talking, my last question is just a space for you to promote yourself, talk about any recent successes or any cool things you have kind of coming up. Some folks have kind of taken this to offer like where they can be found online, like networking. So this is just your chance to be your own cheerleader. Let's hear it.
All right, thank you. Well, once again, my name is Krystle Allen, and I am from Newark, New Jersey. I'm an Afro Latina, the oldest of seven. I have five nephews and one niece, and I am currently Miss Newark USA, which is a pageant system. I'm their first legally blind title holder. And I recently became Miss East Coast, New Jersey, USA, which is another pageant system. And I was their only legally blind contestant in the state preliminary competition on May 26th this year. And I will be competing in the nationals, which is the entire East Coast, in August, August 1st to the 4th. And I may very well be the only legally blind contestant in this pageant as well, but I'm really looking forward to it. I am the co founder and current president of a locally based community nonprofit organization called Eyes Like Mine Incorporated. And this year, I'm celebrating 10 years with the work of my organization. We were founded in March of 2014, and our mission is to share awareness about the abilities and potential of individuals with vision loss through community service initiatives, comprehensive empowerment workshops, and innovative social change awareness events. And we can be found at our website at eyeslikeMine.org. We are home of Dancing with the Blind and the Miss Blind Diva Empowerment Pageant. It's the first and only pageant for women with vision loss. And right now we are recruiting for contestants. And the grand prize is $1,000 each year. Our pageant will be approaching its 8th annual pageant on October 25th and 26th this year in person. So all women ages 18 and up, whether you wear prescription eyewear, whether you identify with the vision impaired and blind community, you're welcome to apply and visit our site for the application. The deadline is July 31st, 2024. And we have support groups, we have in person events, virtual events for everyone. We're also celebrating men who are in the blindness community this month, as June is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. And we have a nomination that we're looking for dads to submit their photos of themselves and with their child or children by June 30th to be a part of our dad's photo contest in the spirit of Father's Day and Men's Month. And we are also looking to see who would like to nominate themselves to be a part of our very first ever Blind Men's Achievement Awards, which we will be organizing in December of this year. So we have a lot. We are a small organization, but we're doing mighty work. And we can be followed on social, on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook using our handle at Eyes Like Mine Inc. I'm a first generation college grad. I'm a non traditional student, but I am also the 2024 finalist for the National Federation of the Blind Student Scholarship, which I'll be traveling to Orlando in a couple of weeks to be a part of the scholars who were selected in the national convention for the National Federation of the Blind. So that's a lot about me and how you can find my organization. If you want to email us, you can email us at events@eyeslikeMine.org. And I just want to say thank you so much for listening to me, listening to my story. And if you are a book lover, June is also Audiobook Appreciation Month. And I am one of 8 authors in an anthology called The Right to Heal. It can be found on Amazon and on Audible, and it's WRITE, the number 2, HEAL. So thank you once again, and I hope we can stay connected.
Krystle, that's a lot. Thank you for all you do, and congratulations on your pageant wins. That sounds awesome.
Thank you.
All right, Krystle, no matter where you go or what you do, I'm rooting for you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Of course.